This hearing didn't just go off the rails. It exploded. What started as a question about justice for Jeffrey Epstein's victims quickly turned into a full-blown showdown between House Democrats and Attorney General Pam Bondi. And what unfolded was pure political combustion. It began with a powerful moment.
Yeah, okay. And are you up next? Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I want to begin by acknowledging the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific abuse who are in the room with us today. I want to thank all of you for your bravery in speaking out. And I want to say that you and the other survivors of these heinous crimes deserve better from this Department of Justice. In particular, it is shocking that the department did not redact the names of Epstein's victims, but it did redact the names of their abusers. I don't know whether this was done out of incompetence or whether it was deliberate and malicious, but either way, it is completely unacceptable. Even more troubling, the DOJ has failed to bring any of these perpetrators to justice. Instead, it has engaged in a relentless pursuit of Donald Trump's perceived enemies. I want to focus on just one example. The Attorney General of my home state of New York, Tish James. This DOJ has been hell-bent on securing an indictment against Ms. James for something, anything, simply because she held Donald Trump's companies accountable for years of financial fraud. And indeed, the department manufactured an investigation against her for alleged, quote, mortgage fraud. But the U.S. attorney leading the investigation, Eric Siebert, a Trump appointee, refused to bring charges against Ms. James because there was simply no evidence. Unfortunately, a prosecutor who refuses to do Trump's bidding has no place in this DOJ, so Mr. Siebert was forced out. Trump could not contain his fury that he expressed to you in a social media post addressed to you by name. I'm sure you've seen it. Quote, I fired him and there is a great case, he wrote to you about, Mr. Siebert. Then we moved down. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. And obviously, you followed that order. Lindsay Halligan, Trump's former defense lawyer who had never prosecuted a case in her life, was installed to replace Mr. Siebert, and it was clear that part of her mandate was to go after Ms. James. Halligan immediately sought an indictment, which the court dismissed because Halligan was illegally put into the role. But your department was undeterred, and not once, but twice, it tried to indict Attorney General James in separate courts. Both grand juries rejected you and refused to indict her. It is practically unheard of for a grand jury to refuse an indictment. In 2016, it happened in just 6 cases out of over 150,000 offenses. And you had it happen twice in the same week, in 2 different courts. That must have been humiliating. And now there are reports you are continuing to investigate her. The amount of resources that have gone into targeting Attorney General James, months of investigations, multiple failed indictments, is astounding. Since your own prosecutors told you that there is not enough evidence to support a conviction, it's clear that you are going after her simply because she held President Trump accountable and he wants to punish her. And she is just one name on a long list of Trump political enemies that DOJ is reportedly targeting. From Jerome Powell and Lisa Cook at the Federal Reserve to James Comey, numerous Democratic members of Congress, John Brennan, Jack Smith, Democratic officials in Minnesota, Chris Krebs, Miles Taylors, and more. And those are just the ones we know about. In contrast to these politically motivated investigations, grasping at something they can charge their enemies with, we now have concrete evidence of disgusting criminality revealed in the Epstein files. So I really have just one question for you. How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No, you're going to answer the question the way I asked it.
Chairman Jordan, I'm not going to get in the gutter with these people, but I'm going to answer the question.
How many have you indicted?
Again, the time belongs to
reclaiming my time.
The time belongs.
I think it's very interesting.
My time.
I think it's very interesting.
And you can reclaim
your time. He talks about they indicted. The president said they indicted him twice.
Mr. Chairman, please stop the clock and restore his time.
Okay, here we go with these theatrics.
The time belongs to the gentleman from New York. We will give you a few more seconds. We will do that. But when you ask a question, the witness gets to answer. You may not like the answer, but she gets to answer.
The question was, how many of Epstein's...
They don't like the answer, Chairman.
My time.
Because it's honest. So he asked a 4-minute question.
Restore 45 seconds, Mr. Nadler, please, Mr. Chairman.
Answer.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch. Not on our time. No way. And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
You're a lawyer, not even a lawyer.
Committee will be in order.
Time, and I should get back at least 45 seconds.
We will give you a few more seconds. I said that already.
45 seconds.
Okay, I'm timing right now, Mr. Nadler.
All right.
My time. The answer to my question, how many of Epstein's co-conspirators has she indicted, is 0. You have been the Attorney General for a whole year, And your DOJ fired the lead prosecutor of this case, sat on evidence this entire time, and claimed falsely last July that there were no more leads. It took an act of Congress for you to finally release part of the Epstein files, and when you did, you included personal information about the victims while protecting the names of abusers.
Time of the gentleman
None of
has
the perpetrators have
expired.
been brought to justice, but enormous resources
Time of the
dedicated
gentleman
to
has
pursuing Trump's
expired,
enemies.
and
It's
obviously
clear
there
that
was-
under your leadership, the Department of Justice
There was
no longer
no
works for
question
American
in there
people. It works
for
for
her to
Donald
respond to.
Trump. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.
May I answer?
I think our next questioner, Madam Attorney General, is going to give you time to respond to.
Thank you, Chairman.
A Democrat from New York opened by acknowledging the survivors of Epstein's abuse sitting in the room. He thanked them for their bravery. And then he dropped a bombshell accusation. He said the Department of Justice failed to redact the names of Epstein's victims while protecting the names of their abusers. Let that sink in. Victims exposed. Abusers shielded. He didn't mince words. He called it either incompetence or something worse, deliberate and malicious. And then he pivoted. Instead of aggressively pursuing Epstein's co-conspirators, he argued, this dojo has been focused on going after Donald Trump's political enemies, specifically New York Attorney General Letitia James. He laid out a detailed timeline, investigations launched, prosecutors replaced, grand juries rejecting indictments. Not once, but twice. That's almost unheard of. He framed it as political retaliation. He accused the DOJ of bending to Trump's pressure. He cited Trump's own social media post demanding action, and then he delivered the question that lit the fuse. How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? Simple, direct, devastating. That's when everything unraveled. Bondi pushed back hard. She refused to answer the question the way it was asked. She accused Democrats of hypocrisy. She referenced Trump's own indictments. The room turned chaotic. Members shouted over each other. The chairman had to restore time. At one point, Bondi snapped, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer it. Democrats weren't having it. They accused her of filibustering. They demanded a direct number. The clock was stopped. Time was restored. The temperature kept rising. And finally, when he reclaimed his time, the Democrat delivered his own answer, 0. He said the number of Epstein co-conspirators indicted under her leadership was 0. He accused the DOJ of firing the lead prosecutors, sitting on evidence, falsely claiming there were no new leads, and only releasing files after Congress forced their hand. And then came the final charge. The DOJ exposed victims' personal information while protecting alleged abusers. Game over. This wasn't a normal oversight exchange. This was a credibility war. On one side, Democrats arguing the Justice Department is shielding the powerful while targeting political opponents. On the other, Bondi firing back that Democrats are weaponizing the issue and ignoring their own record. But here's what matters. The core question never really got answered. How many additional Epstein perpetrators have been indicted in a case that rocked the country? That's not a partisan question. That's a justice question. And when a hearing about accountability devolves into shouting, time disputes, and procedural chaos, it tells you just how politically radioactive this issue still is. This wasn't just tension. This was a Department of Justice under direct fire. And if this exchange is any indication, the Epstein files are far from a closed chapter. Capitol Watch will be following every development because accountability doesn't end when the cameras turn off.